And there it is. We're live again.
We are indeed.
And how are you doing on this fantastic Monday evening, Joel?
I'm doing well. Bailey decided to be naughty tonight. So,
and what does naughty look like?
Chewing plants, chewing tissues, chewing everything, bringing every stick into the house, and generally causing havoc.
Nothing like a little bit of dog love to stir up things and start your day off to a good in a good way, especially with Bailey, who's seems to be a bit of a rock star of his own these days.
Yes, absolutely. He's almost 1 year old. I can't believe it.
It's mad. Only in a few days, no? A week and a bit.
A week and a bit, yeah.
Awesome stuff. So, Joel, talk us through the topic for today, because the topics are all your brainchild, but at the same time, the conversation is there to educate many of you out there who probably had never heard the word neurodiverse before you met Joel. And since then, he hasn't shut up about it, which is great, because that's the whole aim of these the series and these conversations, fighting for your right to party. So Joel, let us know more about this series, but specifically this topic.
Well, in a nutshell, I'm getting quite good at this, Max, because I'm getting quite good at saying things clean and short, sharp, and to the point. In short, we all need to really be more inclusive and indeed accepting of other people's uniquenesses, and even if you have no idea what neurodiversity is, we are, for those of you who don't know, we are, I'm sure, going to be telling you exactly the same definition as we have done on the previous 8 series episodes, and indeed the previous series. So there you go, Mac.
Awesome stuff. Well, it's good to see a few people in the audience there already commenting and dropping in a few hellos over there. So thank you so much for joining us, and it's going to be an interesting conversation. The whole point of why the world needs more neurodiversity, or need to at least embrace it, is going to, well, we're going to open a can of worms, and we're going to go through some interesting.
We usually do.
But the key thing today is really just, the more we speak about it, the more people are aware of it, the more people become informed, and they learn. And through the process of discussion and learning, we have the opportunity to really bring this to the forefront of people's minds, because unfortunately most people don't really get to deal with somebody that's neurodivergent unless it's a family member, or it's a friend, or it's somebody that they've employed and they're not sure how to communicate. So the key thing for us is all about making sure that this discussion is had on an open forum, and give people an opportunity to firstly ask questions, because guess what? Neurodivergent people don't bite, or often, as I believe. Hey, Joel.
That depends who you ask, man.
We've got to be very careful where that goes. Anyway, so the key thing right now is for us to be able to have these conversations and really open people's minds to the possibilities. We're exploring the communication channels between neurotypical and neurodivergent individuals. It will give people an opportunity to coexist much in a better way, but also be able to open some incredible doors, as we've already found. Every time Joel and I speak, and every time we explore something different or something new, especially when it comes to tech, Joel just he kind of takes things, kind of looks at it, and then when you look again, he's made it make magic, where I'm sitting there going, I thought it only could do this, but he got it to do so much more. Hence our recent conversation around design and how boring my designs were in comparison. So letting Joel unleash himself on your video editing or your design work, magic happens, and then all of a sudden you go, I can look good. So let's have a quick look just at those that have commented, so we can just pop them up over here. We have we've got Sue Dennis. She has heard awesome stuff, and she is joining us from the UK. That's awesome stuff. And we've got Emu, who has just given Leah Turner a shout out. Yes, absolutely. Leah is also a neurodivergent and also an incredible content creator here on LinkedIn. So if you haven't checked out, make sure you do. And Emu as well. I tell you what, that lady has got an eye for detail. I've had several posts where I've kind of put them out, and because of my wonderful dyslexia and sometimes forgetting to switch Grammarly on, it makes sense to me in my head, and then when it goes out, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And then other people read it, and every now and then Emu has sent me little back channel messages, thankfully, to help me kind of go, Mac, maybe you meant, and I'm like, okay. So for people like that, you've got to embrace and love it when people are there to help you along the way. So really, really cool. So Joel, when it comes to embracing neurodiversity, what do you think are the biggest challenges for people as to why they don't necessarily embrace or aren't even aware of the term neurodiverse in a lot of cases?
Well, first of all, why people don't embrace it? We humans like to do the easy route, and that's probably why the West is the most lazy, lazy part of the world going at the moment, and probably why obesity is so high up there.
You're going off the subject here. That's my job.
We do like our easy routes. Why? Because they're easy. We don't want to bother to take time as to, well, I do, as to why things are what they are, and there must be something else underneath that to make them makes somewhat more sense. So if we don't understand things, we tend to just dismiss it.
Now, I'm going to throw a slight spanner in the works there with regards to potentially dismissing, because you've brought an interesting point up there with regards to generally the people from the West are potentially lazier than most, but it's an interesting thing, because if you look at the culture that many of us are exposed to when it comes to laziness, we look at our immediate gratification society that we live in, and that's in every sense of that statement, because you look at as you referred to the obesity problem, and that's fostered by the speed of trying to get food and convenience of get it down, don't think about the process or what it is or what it's doing to your body, just like it smells nice, tastes nice, must be good. And that's why there's such a big drug problem, but that's another story. But the challenge with this immediate gratification kind of world that we live in, and when you look at business and you look at people's behaviors when it comes to dealing with each other, a lot of the time it's impatience that causes people not to explore and find out about other people. And for somebody like yourself who thinks very differently to most people, but you're also very analytical, and you're able to look at things that most people wouldn't even think about the detail, but you'll catch it like that. It must be very frustrating as a neurodivergent individual who can see a better way when others don't have time, so they rush and they do it in a way that could really be an enhanced if they just took the time to have a proper conversation.
Yes, it is annoying, but the other side of that is I do enjoy telling people I told you so.
Oh man. Well, for those of you that are watching, firstly, I'd love to hear some of the kind of neurodiverse stereotypes that you have heard or been labeled with, or seen people use, and some of the kind of things that, if people only took a second to embrace the difference, that that's where the magic is possible. But unfortunately, as I was saying, with regards to the kind of immediate gratification side of things, I caught myself earlier today, and I was opening an app, and I'm got dyslexia, and only found that out late in life, because I kept swapping things around, trying to mask it for a very long time. And then when I figured out what it was, it made life so much easier knowing the coping mechanisms. But I also have butterfly mentality, as my previous colleague told me, and he's an absolute gem. But he kind of noticed very quickly I'd flutter from one thing to the next, which, when you've got things like TikTok and everything else, it's all for those few second, grab your attention and move on. But I think the danger of the society that we live in with this immediate gratification, it doesn't allow us to take a breath and experience each other's uniqueness. And when I talk about uniqueness, I mean that goes across the board. That's race, religion, culture, food types, football, preferences, music, and of course neurodiversity. So the frustrations that somebody like you must face, I know I face lots of interesting frustrations, and sometimes I have to stop myself from saying things out loud because I think out loud. But what are the kind of typical things that you see as missed opportunities for people in the workplace or just in everyday life when it comes to not knowing or getting to know neurodivergent individuals?
The most obvious one, I think, is watching these, for wanting a better word, Hollywood over the top portrayals, if you like, of autistic people.
And actually, while that brought me to an interesting conversation, because for those of you who weren't there, and that's all of you, because it was just Joel and my daughter and myself in the car. And Joel is autistic, my daughter's ADHD, and very strong on the autistic side of things. So we are waiting just for her assessment. And then there's myself with my ADHD tendencies and my dyslexia. And the three of us get in the car, and my daughter says, after she just met Joel, she talks about a movie or a series that she had just seen. And Joel, what was your response?
Honestly, I've given so many, I can't remember.
It was specifically about, there was a series about a young man who plays an autistic person. I think it's called, is it called Atypical?
Well, there's several. Now there's several out there now.
Yeah, this was over a year ago. In fact, almost 2 years ago now, I think. But you responded, yeah, well, it was a nice thought, but why didn't they just get a autistic person to actually portray the role? And for me, it was like, it's like when they put people in wheelchairs to act as a person in a wheelchair. And it's like, surely you can't be saying that there isn't somebody good enough as an actor that is in a wheelchair that can't portray the same kind of, and I think that's one of the big challenges we face is third-party interpretation, as opposed to hearing it from, as they say, the horse's mouth. So that's one of the things that I learned from you, right in the beginning, is when we started talking about how do we embrace, how do we educate people, how do we let people know about what autism is about, as an example. And you just went, well, just ask me. And it was just like so profound and so simple. Yet, and I want to repeat this question for those people who haven't actually watched any of our previous episodes. So, Joel, how old are you now?
31.
Okay, turning the big 32 in 4 months.
Yeah, I'll be 23 again.
23 again, there you go. But here's the thing. So somebody who is 32 years of age, almost, how many times have you had somebody ask you, how do I communicate with somebody that's autistic? How many times would you think that is in your lifetime?
Less than nothing.
And I mean, don't you find that shocking?
But at the same time, not surprising.
And it's not like this is rocket science or anything. I mean, it's, I liken it to a favorite pastime called, the armchair expert. And when we think of the armchair experts, those people sitting at home that are watching, whether it be their favorite sport or dancing on ice or somebody singing or a politician who's got to lead a country through a difficult time.
Well, try to.
Well, let's be careful. Let's not get political here. But what I'm saying here is that instead of asking that person, it's like wanting to learn to throw the javelin, and watching somebody do it, and then somebody telling you what they think that person must be doing in order to practice to be able to throw it that far, and it just sounds ridiculous when you kind of put it that way. But just logical sense would be, well, wouldn't you go to the experts? I mean, wouldn't you go to the guy like that can throw the javelin to learn how to throw the javelin, as opposed to going to somebody else who knows somebody who may be neurodivergent, who had an experience which lasted maybe 3 minutes, and based on those 3 minutes experience, they are now a resident expert. And when we look at the educational system of how much education teachers get to support individuals in the school in the school environment with regards to neurodiversity specifically, I mean, it's quite like I'm at a loss for words how ridiculous it is with the little experience teachers are exposed to. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm trying how to put this nicely.
Pick your words carefully.
My thoughts. This is really hard because the only words I can think of is utter pure stupidity, really. You see, for me, if I want to learn something like, I don't know, LinkedIn, I would come to you. That would be the normal way of doing things.
The logical, not the normal, the logical.
Now, they want to bring normal and logical into the same sentence. Okay, fine. But I will then ask this question. Which one of us is then normal and logical? You guys? By that I mean the neurotypicals? Or people that you like to call weird, like us?
Well, I think I'm okay with being labeled weird. I don't know about yourself, Joel, but I've never wanted to be normal.
I'm okay with weird, but once it gets borderline offensive, then no.
Absolutely, and I think as somebody who likes to see himself as far from normal, I'm okay with that. But yeah, I 100% agree, and there is a fine line. Now, let's focus on some of the things that a lot of people don't know, because in fact, if you're watching this note right now, I'd love you to just if you think of the word neurodivergent, what comes to mind, just drop it in the comments, and don't worry, we won't be offended. We just want true feedback on what it is that you think of when it comes to individuals that are neurodivergent, or what comes to mind. Now, my experience, and everybody's experience I'm sure will be different, but my experience generally has been autism is kind of at the top of the list. But then autism, as an example, is a spectrum, and it might as well be the world's biggest rainbow, because it just depends on where on that rainbow you are. Because I could come to you, Joel, and go, hey, so you're autistic, and you go, yeah, and then where on the spectrum are you?
I'm orange.
Well, interesting. I wasn't going to say orange, but it kind of picks your theme and everything else in the background. And every person you approach and speak to that are on the autistic spectrum are somewhere on that rainbow, and maybe a blur between orange and blue, or red and green, or and this is the part that I think everybody assumes, that just because they're on the rainbow doesn't mean they're all the same. Is that something that you faced quite on regularly, Joel?
Oh yes, and I still get people talking to someone when I'm standing right there about me.
And I mean,
I didn't have to ask the person I'm with. I am here, right? You can see me.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I mean, how does that make you feel?
Kind of invisible. I mean, I might as well not be there, really. And that still goes on even now.
Now, I want people that have just heard that just to kind of take a second and imagine a world where you're invisible and everybody speaks about you in front of you, but not to you.
I thought your phone was going to punctuate every single word with a ping.
The timing was impressive, was it not? I'm glad you picked up on that. But it is, I mean, and this is the challenge. When we go back to the fact that teachers are not equipped in the school environment to be able to support neurotypical and neurodivergent students equally. And the biggest challenge that we face with that is that a lot of children go through a world where they have to mask, as we've spoken about before, but they also go through living in an environment where they're not tolerated or understood, and they don't have teachers that it's like having a Chinese teacher that only speaks Chinese and you're English, and between the two of you, you can't communicate because neither of you, other than a few sign languages kind of things that you're trying to work out, more often than not, it's just going to end up in frustration. And then you get into trouble every single time the teacher tells you something in Chinese, and you've never, you don't understand Chinese. So, when you look at it from, I mean, that sounds like a really ridiculous way of explaining it, but it's fairly accurate. And the fact that our schooling system and our world isn't geared up in a way to embrace neurodiversity in such a way that we can give neurodiverse individuals an equal opportunity to those that are neurotypical, because that's what the schooling system is designed for, is quite scary. Which means you've got one individual who gets a schooling system that, and our schooling system is far from perfect. There's some major upgrades that need to be done across the board, but
it needs to be done.
Absolutely, but it's still geared at the neurotypical individual who can keep up at a certain pace, understand work in a certain way, be taught in a
effectively parrot style.
Yeah, but the challenge with that is what we're doing for the other person or the neurodivergent individual is forcing them through a system that is limiting their abilities and their opportunities, but also making causing a distraction for everybody else, because of the fact that the people that are dealing with them through the process don't understand how to do it. And the learned behaviors, for me, a perfect example of this was, my daughter has ADHD, and we were struggling to try and get her the support that she needed. But because the teacher that she had didn't understand how to deal with a neurodivergent child, kept showing the class that she was the problem. So, kept, and this not only here, it happens across the world where individuals are isolated, they're removed from classroom, they get told they're the bad child, they're disruptive. So all the rest, if you can imagine having a classroom of 30 children, which is kind of the average in a lot of countries, what you're doing by isolating that one individual because they're different is literally showing the other 29 the learned behavior of how they believe society should treat somebody that's different. And that happens whether it's race, religion, culture, food, football, the whole works. And this is how society has programmed us. And the only way we can change that is by really bringing those tests to find out if a child or a toddler is neurodivergent or not earlier on in their life cycle, because that way we can get experts and teachers that can support them throughout their schooling and therefore give them a much better opportunity in society. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Joel? I'm probably not preaching to the unconverted here, but
now the unconverted are doing what they're doing and staying well away from the internet at times like this, where they want to hear the truth. But you hit the nail right on the head there, Mac, with all that, because the education system is failing. We've been saying this for a while, and I think it's never really worked. from when you were in school. It's not really fit for purpose. It's not really been fit for purpose. And that's because I believe that teachers are given books which effectively tell one-sided story, not a discussion as to what's happened throughout the years, and push almost a narrative as complete true and not everything else is a lie at minds which don't yet know how to think for themselves. I mean, that's just sad.
Yeah, I mean, the frustrating part that I see is the fact that when it comes to being able to support people in the right way, we need to be able to have some clear guidance, and fairly quickly and fairly accessible. And we've had, I don't know how many conversations just in the last year, whether it be our LinkedIn Lives or our audios or, other platforms. And the fact is that the majority of people we come across have no idea what kind of support or help is available. Even you and I were going to some of the expos and meeting some of these organizations. We asked some basic questions to a lot of these organizations that support, whether it be autism or neurodiversity, and a lot of them were very kind of stumped when it came to a lot of the questions, because the typical kind of answers we got were, well, I know what we do in our area, or I know what we do in a certain scenario, but just general information about local support, whether it be through your local council, what are the kind of standards that you can go to for information when it comes to basic help on support as a parent. A lot of these things are just not rightly available, or if they are, it's so hard to come by. And if I give you an example, right now, if you want to go and get your child assessed in the UK to be find out if they are autistic or not, that can take up to 2 years. Now, imagine the torment that poor child has to go through while they're trying to figure out why they're different, why they don't fit in with everybody else, and why they're being treated differently. And instead of being given coping mechanisms and a way to support them and really help them thrive, they seen as the problem child until that is verified. Surely we should have that as kind of the basis of any form of education before you go into mainstream education, that they know whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent. What do you think, Joel?
Well, I do think that to us again is a logical way of doing things, and but to them, it's the first question on anyone's mind when they're introducing new stuff is, how much will this cost me?
Well, here's the thing. It's like anything else. When a new something comes out, whether it be a new service or a new product, when it first comes out, it costs a fortune. But as you supply and build the need for it out there, and you're able to reproduce it and educate people who can support, it then becomes something that the cost gets driven down by the more people that adopt and take it on. But in order to get there, we need to make it a standard that children have that ability, or parents have that ability to have their children tested in an easily accessible way. It's like, if you look at how they're driving research for cancer or for all these different ailments that people have. We get recommended for eye tests, and children have to go for eye tests before they go to school. Just to make sure that they don't have stigmatism or all these different. And it's like, well, you want to make sure that they can see, but you don't want to make sure that they can understand. And that's where the challenge comes in, is the basic. I don't understand Bailey's question.
No, nor do I, and I did actually think that it was my camera that was coming out the audio on Zoom. No, we discovered it's coming out the camera. There we go. That's better. I've been speaking the entire time on my microphone on the camera. I've been using this. So this has been. I can hear myself, but no one else can hear through this.
Hey, well, there we go. Trial and error. And Emu's just thrown in wow, 2 years is a long time for a wait for a response to be diagnosed. And yes, it is. It's a ridiculous time frame to have to go through and fight. And that's only for those parents that have actually, figured out that there is something that they need to understand better. There's a breakdown in communication with their child. Some people get a clear signal where they may have a situation where the child's not speaking by 3 or 4 years old, and then okay, well, let's go and investigate, because when you get sent away from, and I laugh, I was speaking to my 18-year-old about this some time back, about when children come home and go, but my friend's parents let me, and this one's parents let me, and it's like every parent in the world allows kids to do things that us as a parent maybe not. And I said, okay, so where did they get the guide? Where did they get the guidelines? And she was like, what do you mean? I said, well, which version of the parenting book did they get? And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, the scary thing is you need a driver's license to go out there and get behind a wheel of a car. But you don't need any license to be able to have kids and leave the hospital with a human being that you have the full and sole responsibility of, imprinting in their mind what right and wrong is and everything else. Yet, the social norms that we get given, and here in the UK we get given this little red book, and then it's like the guidance of what's below average, what's above average, and as long as you're in between there somewhere, it's like, okay, I'm doing okay. But the signs in there are for developmental, as an example, but there's nothing about neurodiversity in there. Until you kind of go, oh, there's an obvious sign my child isn't speaking, and it's, or it might be they still not, they're still crawling at 3 years old, like what's going on. Then we go and investigate. But when it comes to, as an example, children throwing tantrums, and it's like, well, it's just a naughty child, we're just not communicating properly. In the meantime, their communication style is different, and as a neurodiverse child, things get interpreted in a different way to a neurotypical child, and these are the things that we don't embrace early enough. So I really do think that if anybody's watching this, our, whether it be the UK or global education influences that are out there that influence our schooling systems and the processes and the teaching and the support that's out there, is I really think that the norm needs to be access to all parents for assessments before schooling, so we can give them the right support. I mean, Joel, just off the top of your head, name 3 things that neurodivergents individuals excel in?
Off the top of my head, okay.
Yeah.
We have got programming, we've got graphic design, we've also got music. And you want me to do the rest of this now, or is that you want me
Oh,
to
keep
stop there?
going, keep going, keep going.
You've got acting, you've got filmmaking. And are we started to spot the theme here?
Well, this is the thing is, when it comes to a lot of people that I've spoken to, when they think neurodivergent, they kind of go, ooh, well, I'm not sure, like, where do they fit in? And this is the scary place. I mean, a scary thing. I mean, you and I discovered quite early on in our conversations that, autistic individuals, as an example, only, well, it varies depending on whose data you look at, between 22 and 28% of individuals that are autistic are in full-time employment. Now, depending on the stats you look at, and when you look at some of the deeper information, you'll find out that might only be a few hours a day, once a week, part-time. But if any finance is exchanged, it's counted as a full-time job in some of the statistics, and that's frightening. Yet, if we had, and I believe if we had support from a much earlier stage in life, then those individuals will be given a much bigger and a much better opportunity to support them, not only through school, but also in the workplace. You've mentioned a few there, but things like data analysts. I mean, some of the our world runs on data. I mean, if you look at AI won't work with no data. So is it fair to say that without our neurodivergent individuals around, AI would be pretty crippled? That's a nod.
Yeah.
So, every big organization looks at big data, and you look at retail stores, and they're always looking at the data to kind of have a look at where people spend, what are the hotspots in stores, what are people spending money on, and the amount of data that they look at to really understand the customer experience comes through those individuals that have that aptitude for looking at this data. Software, as you said, developers, engineers. Again, this is, and I keep thinking, when I think of engineers, I think of this, must have been a neurotypical individual who designed this bridge in Cape Town, because the two flyovers didn't quite connect. So they just stopped building them halfway through. And I thought, you know what, if a neurodivergent individual even looked at the plans, they would have figured out those two bridges weren't going to meet up. So things like that, graphic design. I look at, just as a perfect example, Joel, I go and I show you a new piece of tech, and as an example, whether it's video editing or Canva, or, I could show you how it works. And then 10 minutes later, you'll go, oh, okay, did you know that you can also do this? And I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, I've been using 3 programs where you've just been using 1. The ability to be able to really push out the noise and focus is, some people think, oh, that's rather weird. It's awkward. They're wearing headphones. They want to try and ignore the rest of the world. No, it's just pure downright focus. It's like, I don't want to hear all the crap, because the world is full of noise. If we look all around us. So, for yourself, what kind of things come to mind when you think of areas that need to embrace neurodiversity even more?
Well, all the areas really need to embrace, every single part of the world needs to embrace the neurodiversity people. And if you still struggle to believe that neurodiverse people actually have made something of themselves, all you have to do is typing on Google like I did 3 years ago. And I knew some of these people. Anyway, famous people with autism, and you get people like Bill Gates, Tim Burton, and more.
I mean, I think on that previous episode or the last 2 or 3, I posted lists of people that are neurodivergent in various, various classifications, and the list astounds me, and it's interesting because I think in today's generation we've got more entrepreneurs today than we probably ever had in life, but and this is where I urge people that are, potentially, let's say, neurotypical, to really embrace, their neurodivergent counterparts, because when we look at the ability to think outside the box, the resilience that that neurodivergent individuals face throughout their lives, especially through the education system and then in the workplace, and the unique perspective that can really be an asset to entrepreneurs out there. So, really, if you haven't got several neurodivergent individuals in your workplace right now, you're missing a few tricks. You probably haven't got your design work looking as amazing as it could be. People thinking outside the box about how you could do things differently and better. Things like project managers, especially those with ADHD, they excel in dynamic environments, and multitasking and quick decision making is kind of key. And you only learn that through the fact that you're always looking at so many different things. You've got to be able to multitask and cope with those things. And then even in things like counselors and therapists, it's an interesting area as well, because some neurodivergent individuals, they really have a deep sense of empathy, and they can excel in roles that understanding and assisting others. And I've seen this time and time again, where a neurodiverse individual stands up to people in the playground, as an example, up to bullies on behalf of other people, because they have experienced that pain and that situation themselves, and they don't want other people to hurt like they did, and that makes them way more empathetic to other people's situations. And then there's so many other things that neurodiverse individuals excel in, but are really, for those people that are watching and learning about neurodiversity, do yourself a favor. You owe it to yourself and you owe it to the world to go and explore, and go and meet 10 neurodiverse individuals out there. Go and explore. I bet you've probably got somebody sitting in your office that you're not even aware of, and don't realize that with the right support and the right work environment, you could help them excel and make serious magic happen. But because, as you said earlier, a lot of us live in this world where we just don't have time, where there's just no interest. And actually, we are losing a massive opportunity there because of the fact that we just trying to go too fast, not taking a breath, not taking it in, and realizing that the beauty is right in our presence. What are your thoughts, Joel? Any final thoughts as we come to almost the end of this another deep discussion? My brain is just like shooting off. I want to get hold of every single educational department around the world right now and go, come on, man, let's make changes.
No, I think corporal punishment actually did go out the window in the 80s.
I didn't mean it like that, but thanks.
But yeah, all we have to do, all society has to do, is do what I have done recently, and stop walking around with your eyes shut.
Yeah.
Number one, it'll be extremely painful because you keep bumping into things. And number two, you'll miss out on extraordinary things that you may have never even thought of, or an incredible human being which you may have been working next to, and you had no idea because you were playing Candy Crush.
You say that with a bit of jest, but it's actually you're 100% right. If you look at I love going on the tube as an example and just like walking past people and just going hi, and it's just like people look up from their phones, it's like, what the hell just happened? And it's like come on, man, like just get out of your phone for a second, or out of the newspaper that's upside down and you're not even reading, but you're using to avoid eye contact. And the reality is, if we just took a breath and appreciated what's around us, and got to know, be more inquisitive, that's where some incredible things can happen. And I know people are watching this on YouTube, they're watching this on Facebook, they're watching this on LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn is our favorite platform.
Yeah, real people are born.
But we don't begrudge those on YouTube or on Facebook. But do make sure that you are following the RockstarX journey. And we'd love to hear your insights and your thoughts about how you've been impacted, whether you are a neurodiverse individual or a neurotypical parent with a neurodiverse individual. Each one of us have been shaped by our environments to date. But the only way we can change and make things better in the future is to make sure that we are educated and equipped to be able to do better in the future. And I know as a parent, I 100% want to be able to do my best and do better. And I know, there are times where I look at how I respond to things and I think, wow, my environment and how the world, like how I've seen other things, have have in a lot of ways programmed my auto response, that I have to sometimes stop myself and go, hold on, why are you responding like that? Because that's just exactly the opposite of what needs to happen in this situation. So I've definitely been challenged with testing my patience. But it's a good thing, because this is where I've learned, outside of my comfort zone. So, Joel, for people like yourself that have, really helped open my eyes to the challenges that you as an individual have faced, and those around us, that, if the world was just looking at things slightly differently and embracing neurodiversity from an early on stage in life, just imagine where the world could be in 10, 15, even 20 years from now.
Indeed.
And I'll leave you with those thoughts. Joel,
and I would like to say we've been discussing this off the air, Mac, but I think we should announce that season 3 will take a slightly different layout, and we want to invite you to join us up on this wonderful platform, and because we want to hear your voice.
That's 100%. And for every single one of you, if you are watching this or listening, and an inspirational neurodiverse individual that the world needs to know about and hear about, but that can share their story to give hope to other individuals out there, please do us a favor, drop it in the comments, send a message to Joel, send a message to me, and let's get them as part of the conversation in our new series coming soon.
I will give you a hint. If you send a message to his LinkedIn, his Facebook, and his phone, he will eventually get it.
Eventually. I think we are going to have to put a landing page together just where inquiries can go, Joel.
Yes, well, you're good at that.
Where people can join our RockstarX mailing list and be updated on all our future events, how they can support us, and how we can support them as well.
Well, yes, you're good at that, so
we'll make that happen. You see, I'm already being delegated to. So, Joel, thank you very much. We'll make.
You're very welcome. And we will see everyone, hopefully, all being well with certain out of our control events that may or may not occur in 2 weeks' time. But we shall be back for the final episode of season 2 in 2 weeks' time, and then we will be announcing season 3 for the next month as we go forward. But we have got a comment from Sue who says thank you.
Thank you everybody for joining us.
And we will see you all in the next episode.